Welcome to another session of Technology by Performance. I'm Ken Umansky, your host, as we explore more of the world of technology. Today, my guest is Joe Alapat, the co-founder and chief technology officer at LionGuard. He's a leading authority on how to secure modern IT infrastructure at scale, with more than 20 years of experience managing IT infrastructure. Before starting LionGuard, Joe owned, operated, and sold an IT managed service provider that served government, mid-market, and small to medium-sized businesses. Joe was honored as a channel chief by CRN in 2020, 2021, and 2022. He graduated with honors and has a BS degree in computer science from Trinity University and is a certified information systems security professional. Welcome, Joe, and thanks for joining me today. How is everything going?
Good, Ken. I'm doing good and happy to be here. How are you doing?
I'm good. But let me start by saying, with IT security a hot topic in the technology space, I bet you're staying pretty busy.
Yeah, feels like the cyber risk environment is just getting more and more intense. I just look at the global environment we're in with two wars happening simultaneously. That's just an indication of what's going on also on the cyber side, where there's just so much that we need to be careful about in protecting our environments. So it's a busy time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me ask you the first question, and it's pretty interesting question. The name LionGuard is a pretty interesting name. What's the story behind it, and how'd you come up with it?
Yeah, it's a good question. When my co-founder Vincent and I went off to work on this next business that we started, which was LionGuard back in 2015. Rewind back just a little bit behind that, we were actually finishing up at our previous managed service provider, where we worked with two other business partners to support mid-market and enterprise environments around protecting their infrastructure. And so when we decided we wanted to go off and build something new, I happened to be in East Africa at a certain point, and I was in the Serengeti. My wife actually sells safaris.
That's cool.
So yeah, it's a great gig.
Yeah. So you've been to Africa quite a few times, I bet.
Yep, I've been several times, and my wife always gets the interesting remarks at parties. Most people say, "Oh, the IT guy push me aside and they want to talk about stories." So yeah, I've been several times, and really, just looking at lions and just being inspired by the animals. At the same time, thinking through the fact that we were thinking about building a company that was focused around securing infrastructure. We thought about names that would portray strength, would portray a sense of security. And out of that, the name LionGuard was born. And so, the domain name was available, and I kept sitting on it. And my wife said, "Why don't you just buy the domain name?" And I did.
So you did, right? Well, interesting. I haven't heard of a company that really was stimulated, or the idea behind it was a safari. So that's kind of unique. That's cool. Let me ask a question. Why does the world need the solutions that you guys are providing at LionGuard, and particularly in the context of the current IT and security challenges that companies are facing?
Yeah, I mean, it honestly, we are part of a larger ecosystem of so many players that are focused around, cybersecurity, and specifically around protecting the security posture of businesses. And this is hard work. Most CISOs and CIOs will always refer to a phrase where they say it's going to take a lot of blocking and tackling, and you hear that phrase a lot. And what that means, it's a lot of little things, and it's like herding chickens to try to protect environments in a manner that gives you a feeling that you're actually making improvements. And so, with that in mind, our focus is around continuously monitoring the security posture, identifying the security controls in an automated way, and then quickly telling the operator where the weaknesses exist. And this is something that is showing up and has showed up historically with compliance requirements, right? Very common there. Where you have things like HIPAA, you have things like PCI, where these topics of security posture have come up. Security frameworks like NIST exist, such as CIS that exist. Same thing. They're actually speaking about your security posture. And more so now, what's interesting is what we're seeing out there, that every business is facing this challenge around cyber insurance, where many of us have large customers, and those largest customers are going to be the first ones to demand, if you don't already have it, that you carry cyber liability insurance. And why is that? Because they're looking at their third-party risk. And so we're seeing this domino effect happening where it's your customer's customer. It's like it's this chain of folks that are expecting that everyone is managing their cyber risk in a much more appropriate way. And this is why continuously monitoring security posture is so important.
I imagine as more security breaches happen, visibility of the need for more higher security is really going to grow. It sounds like you're in a really good spot.
Yeah, I mean, it's, some would say it's a very difficult spot, right? It's challenging, position to be in to try and stay on top of these things. But it without a doubt, it's why, Vince and I got in the business. It's a reason why Michelle, who has now come on as a CEO in April, joined the team to lead us. And it's because the environment is getting worse and worse.
Yeah,
and there needs to be a better solution to managing security. You look at things like the MGM, situation in Vegas, and the breaches there. Yeah, they're very visible, and the impact is very visible. So it's something that is top of mind for most business to say, well, how is my risk being addressed?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me ask you if you could discuss a little bit the types of technology that our listeners should be adding to their stack to enhance security and risk management, and how does LionGuard how do you complement these technologies?
It's interesting. You could run through all kinds of frameworks, all kinds of methods to go pick apart all the things that you should do around cybersecurity to protect your environments. And what I have found through analyzing the industry for so long is I love to find, what's the short list, right? There's so many things you can do. How do you prioritize the most important things? And the recent, like over the last year and a half, the recent insight that I've gained has been that, well, who's most impacted by these breaches? Definitely the businesses. But what we've seen is that cyber insurers who have potentially millions or billions of dollars at play have the most to lose because they're carrying the risk of all of these businesses.
Right.
So they ask specific questions in questionnaires around why, do you have X, Y, and Z set up? Do you have this deployed? You start to realize why you need to pay attention to those controls, because we've worked our way back to them to understand, well, why are you doing this? Well, guess what? They have their actuaries, they have their statisticians, and they've had to pay for those ransomware events. And what did they do? They researched the root cause. And they researched the root cause to find out, how do we mitigate our risk? Because we can't exist as a business if we have to keep paying these things out at the rate that we had to. And so when you think about it that way, that's what I've started to realize, is that the inner circle of the set of security controls that matter most are actually being identified by these cyber insurers. And it is a crosswalk to other frameworks. And those frameworks do cover a larger set of controls. But the way I look at it is, if you haven't done these, then focus on these first, these set of controls. And what are those set of controls? The number one thing, and you will get rejected all day long by a cyber insurer if you don't have this in place: multi-factor authentication on your primary email solution, which would typically be something like a Microsoft 365 or a Google Workspace. If you don't have multi-factor authentication enabled, forget it. You are not insurable, right? So that's something that without a doubt is the number one thing. And so how does LionGuard address this? Well, we inspect those systems to identify those weaknesses and help you facilitate making sure that you have full coverage around multi-factor authentication. And we work with IT service providers that are doing that for hundreds and thousands of businesses themselves, right? So those
Yeah.
are the players that use our software. But more to that is around email security. Are the email security settings set up correctly? And there are 3-letter acronyms and 4-letter acronyms I can throw around, like SPF, Vendor Policy Framework, DKIM, DMARC. These are settings that on your regarding email security that should be set up properly so that you can set yourself up in a better situation to reduce the chance of people spoofing you or for spam to be as high as it should be, and bring that back down again. So I would say those types of controls are important. And yes, yet another thing that LionGuard inspects and analyzes along with other email security controls. And then really past that, I can jump down to the endpoint, which is basic things. Do you have, is encryption enabled on the drives, that of your laptops? So that's BitLocker on Windows, and that's File Vault on a Mac. Those are the typical ones that are inbuilt. And why is that important? Well, what happens when someone steals your laptop and there's vital data on there that should not be accessed by anyone? You better hope it's encrypted, because if it isn't, then it's easily stolen. So why that's important, right? So the others are around, is RDP or remote desktop enabled? Can someone easily remotely access that machine? Are the firewalls enabled on the device? And no doubt, is there an endpoint detection and response solution or managed detection and response solution in place around on that endpoint? And these are both, when I say endpoint, what I mean are Windows workstations, laptops, Mac OS devices, as well as servers. So those could be any type of server, right? So that's what I mean by endpoints. Those are some of the top things that I would tell you. Just make sure that those things are in place. And I could keep going on and on. I know we don't have all day, but that's basic breathing. And then from there, you go further. And my recommendation is, if you don't know what I just covered, talk to an MSP that you would trust or find, or get in touch with us, and then we can get you connected with somebody who can help, right? And this is something that's super important.
Well, you've made me feel totally insecure about my security system, so we'll talk afterward. Absolutely.
Sounds good, Ken.
Can you tell me what the future of continuous security posture management's about, and what do you think is going to happen there?
Yeah, so when you think about risk, it isn't something that gets audited once a year. I always like to say the attacker is not waiting for your annual audit, right? They're coming at you all the time, and what that means is that you're in a risky environment 24/7. So what that means is that continuously monitoring and protecting your infrastructure is also critical. And so insurers know this. They're also leading down this path. Warranty players are leading in this path, where everyone is looking to understand, how is the security posture of this end business on a regular basis? And are they in compliance with the requirements that we set forth or we agreed upon to reduce that risk? And then think of Progressive and their way to monitor how a car insured individual would be driving, and potentially managing their premiums in that manner and monitoring their risk. It's the same thing with IT environments, that continuously monitoring that will take place. And with that in mind, you'll also see that auditing, attestation frameworks, and others, I'm predicting that most of them are all going to start moving to more of a continuous thought process. So it's not something that you look at once a year, but probably much more frequent.
Yeah,
or there could be proof that shows continuous protection over that period.
Yeah, that's terrific. We're running out of time, so I want to thank you for a great discussion and for making me now stay up at night. That's really, I'm going to have to talk to you. IT security is tremendously important, as you pointed out, and you're giving the audience some good insight and what's happening and where it's going to go. And with that, you mentioned that you were going to, people should get in touch with you. How should they do that?
Yeah, Ken. Hopefully we can put people at ease. I would encourage folks to visit our website at liongard.com, liongard.com, and then reach out to me on LinkedIn. My profile is just Joe Alapat. Happy to catch up with folks and chat about this very topic and answer any specific questions that anyone has.
Terrific. Well, thanks again. Don't miss the next episode of Technology when we'll discuss how cutting-edge technology is being implemented across many industries and the results it's really having with these companies. That's really what we think differentiates technology, is we talk about how they're being implemented and the results of that implementation. Remember to please contact Performance Business Solutions at performancebiz.com if you need help with any technology challenge, whether it be large or small. Again, I'm your host, Ken Umansky, and until we meet again on another technology podcast, keep innovating.